Hello everyone, Pro Gamer here. Today I am raising and answering a new question that may have driven some curiosity in Mario Golf Toadstool Tour. Can you reach every green in regulation with every character? To answer this question, we must first define green in regulation. Pulling this up from Wikipedia, a green is considered hit in regulation if any part of the ball is touching the putting surface whilst the number of strokes taken is at least 2 fewer than par, in essence by the first stroke on a par 3, the second stroke on a par 4, or the third stroke on a par 5. This is signified in-game by animated pop-up text that says either nice on, nice approach when you reach green in regulation with an approach shot, excellent when you reach green in regulation less than 3 feet from the cup, or great when you go under green in regulation with a putt for eagle or albatross. Why is this significant? Simply, green in regulation is the best and fastest way to obtain birdies and best badges, since all you need to do thereafter is sink your putt. Now for the meat of the challenge, being able to achieve green in regulation on every hole with any character. For this video I will be using Koopa Troopa since he is the weakest character in the game. Logically, if he can reach a green in regulation, any other character can as well. Only the standard clubs available in the vanilla Toadstool Tour game will be used. The POW, Super POW, and Risky clubs from Mario Golf Advanced Tour add significant distance to shots and will not be considered. I will also be playing from back tees to lengthen every hole and tournament greens to simulate star tournament conditions. This is all done with no wind and no rain so as not to skew data. I will discuss the implications of rain and adverse headwind or tailwind on several of the more difficult holes. Lastly, this does not include the Congo Canopy Par 3 course, since every hole is short and every green is easily accessible by any character. All that said, we are finally ready to answer the question, can Koopa Troopa reach every green in regulation from back tees? Let's get started. Now for this shortened version of the green in regulation video, I am only going to be showing holes on each course that are noteworthy or of the most difficult to reach green in regulation with. Now in the case of hole 14, the back tee box forces you deep in the tree line, so you have to play a draw which will consume some of your power. And then thereafter you attack the green, but other than that it's nothing too special. Cheap hole 5, this is It plays significantly longer with this dogleg going from right to left. There is a small shortcut that you can take that some of the weaker characters may benefit from, but the rest of the roster should just be able to hit their strongest shot to the corner of the dogleg and then just proceed from there. But you know, if you play as strong but delicate of a shot as possible to this left portion, then you have a good angle to the green with your most aggressive second shot to get the green in regulation. And then hole 10 on Cheap Falls is pretty much just a long straight par 4, and this second shot tends to play quite a bit longer than the yardage would suggest due to the elevation, so be aggressive. Hole 14, this is an annoying green that is wide but rather shallow, and it's guarded by a tree, so either one of two things you can do is what I just did there, kind of hit the rough and trickle up, or you can land on the right side and you'll have a flat area where you can hit to. Sands is a par 3, hole 4 is a par 3, and it plays severely uphill, so you definitely want to play a high shot. And then the left side is a lot easier to hit to than the right side is, so plan accordingly. Hole 10 is a long but straight par 4. You definitely don't want to skew your shot too far to the left, because otherwise it could end up trickling back short and left, and you won't get the nice on there. Hole 16 is a long par 4 with a green that slants heavily from right to left, so definitely bias your shot toward the right side. It is actually pretty easy to also overroll this shot on here, so yep, keep practicing. Hole 17 is a downhill blind par 3. It can be difficult to judge distance. With the exception of the left side, this is another one of those relatively wide but relatively shallow greens. So if you're desperate, just play to the left side. But yeah, definitely a soft shot will keep the ball on course. Blooper Bay, here on outward, I'm going to be talking about a lot more of these holes because they're a lot more difficult by virtue of their length, complexity, and changes of elevation. So yeah, 400 and up to almost 450 yards from the tee, so you'll want to take advantage of these fast fairways that amplify the bounce and the roll that you get from your shots. Most notably when you land on them directly, but also to a smaller extent when you roll onto them after the first bounce. Generally, you'll want to just land on the very front or just short of the green and trickle the ball up. You know, don't do anything weird or fancy with spin. Hole 3 is pretty long and very far uphill, so yeah, you'll be struggling if you don't have a star character to just reach this green outright. I think you need plus 1% in order to just carry to the left side directly. Hole 5. This hole is a lot more difficult than it looks. The elevation changes definitely add a lot of artificial yardage to this hole, so you'll need a very precise drive. Because if you go too far, then obviously you'll trickle down into the sand. But you know, even if you don't, then you'll be on a downward slope, which will kill the loft that you can achieve with your shot and makes it much more difficult to reach this elevated green. So, yep, it is possible, but very difficult. Hole 12 is a straight but very long par 4 that goes uphill. So you'll want your 2 strongest and highest shots to reach it, and you'll also want to hope that you have a reasonably good lie for your second shot. You may have also, if you have a sharp eye and you looked on the lower right, you'll notice that I shifted the impact point ever so slightly. Koopa Troopa hits with a very slight draw, so if you nudge the impact point slightly left, you'll straighten the shot and add an extra yard or 2, which can prove crucial at times. Hole 16, there is 2 paths you can take, an upper and a lower path. Koopa Troopa cannot reach the upper path from back tees, so he has to use the lower path. So, you know, carefully use the fast fairway to your advantage, and then play a high shot, a high power shot to the green wherever you can. It is a long green, but it doesn't have much room left or right. First hole of Peach's Castle Grounds introduces pipes where if you land in one, then you will come out of the other of the same color nearby. And these can be useful as shortcuts, but could also serve as impediments that you should avoid. So, Koopa Troopa cannot reach any of those pipes from the tee, so, you know, he's forced to play things the long way. And so, yeah, once again, just, you know, your highest, longest, most aggressive shots that you can, and you should be able to barely squeak on that green in regulation, and if you're a good putter, then, you know, that's going to be a birdie for you and pretty much a steal in any match. Hole 8, I only include this one because of its relative complexity, and I notice in casual play it gives people trouble, so generally you want to play your longest, strongest drive to the right side, and then this will give you the room to play an elevated shot for a shortcut over here. But if you can't reach this area comfortably, then alternately you could play to where, you know, on that same level to where that close to where that green mushroom is, and then you should have room for an elevated third shot to the green of about, I'm trying to remember, like 130 yards or so. So yeah, multiple ways you can do that hole. Now hole 13, I include this because no, it appears as though it's difficult and you can't really do much with this, because while you can reach the next platform over, you basically need a perfect shot. But even if you're not so confident in that prospect, this second shot plays so far downhill that you gain a lot of carry with your woods. So definitely take advantage of that, and you should be able to hit that green without much of an issue. Hole 14, this goes way uphill, which Koopa Troopa does not like at all. He hits a pretty low ball in spite of what the stat screen will tell you. So definitely take advantage of one of those pipes. I would definitely recommend the green one because you still have a doozy of a shot, of a second shot going up here. Now yellow pipe, you probably will have to use something like a high 4 wood to reach the green thereafter. And if it's raining, then you can kind of forget about going for green in regulation. You know, just play it as safely as you can. Hole 15 is a very long par 4, and pretty much the second half is almost entirely lined with a strip of fast fairway. So this is a hole that requires extremely good distance control, since the green is very wide, but again very, very shallow. So a couple ways you can do things. Either there is a spot on the right side bereft of fast fairway where you could kind of trickle up, or you can hit to the bottom of the hill with a low shot and just, you know, get a bunch of fast fairway roll. Now, PCG 16, I think this is the most difficult hole in the game to achieve green in regulation with Unstart Koopa, let alone almost any other character. I had to play a high shot with a very slight fade to straighten the ball out, and I had to get +1 RNG in order to roll far enough with this fast fairway to have an unobstructed shot that is barely able to go around these mushrooms and hit this green. So if you're able to do this in 2 shots without +1% RNG, then let me know, because it's possible then that every single hole might be accomplishable with you know, without any luck whatsoever. Now, before going off tangent, hole 18. This is a very long hole that goes uphill all the way. However, there are shortcut pipes that you can use. The green one will take you to another pipe, you know, way up on a bluff, and then the yellow one just kind of takes you significantly further along the course. For purposes of achieving green in regulation, and actually for most purposes outside of rain attack, I recommend the green one. No, because I find playing the downhill shot without any obstructions to be a lot easier than playing an uphill shot to the green where you have to contend with a large tree and a stone bridge. Badlands hole 3, it's you know, a long hole. There's, you know, kind of multiple paths. It's a ginormous, I don't even know if you would call it a dog leg as much as just pretty much an entire dog, you know, that just curls completely around. It's one of those holes that is not long from the tee, but you pretty much cannot go directly to the green unless you have advanced importable clubs or whatnot. So typically what you do is on your second shot you play to this bluff out here that's guarded by the brick wall, and then thereafter you play a high shot wherever you can. But because at that angle the green is very shallow, this is difficult to achieve. Whereas if you go around, it is possible, but you need very strong shots, and there the green will appear to be very long but narrow. Hole 5, I used to think that the only way to do this was to bounce off the rocks on the right and somehow hope to land on fairway, but as it turns out, if you play this drive as far as you can safely, then you'll essentially cut the hole in half, and thereafter you will be able to play your most aggressive shot to the 5th green there. Hole 9, this hole can be very irritating, especially because of the elevated green. You know, your first shot you want to play as aggressively safely as possible, of course. Hope to God that you get a good lie. Also hope to God that you have good weather. And then you will very barely be able to make it to this elevated green up here. Cross your fingers. If you miss a couple marks, then you might just bounce off the rock and be okay. Hole 10, very long par 4, with a lot of hazards, including those stone towers and those thwomps that are as annoying as always. A lot of people like to play shots, you know, far down that stretch to the left. Koopa Troopa can't reach there. Other characters can. But if you play to the right, then you have a relatively unobstructed shot. The thing you have to contend with is fast fairway, which, you know, is, by this point you should be pretty good at gauging the distance that it gives you. So, you know, be sure to take advantage of it whenever you can, rather than treating it as something to fear. Hole 11, this is like the worst par 3 in the game, so, you know, any character, it's difficult to get this green in regulation. It's a small green with weird slope on it, so yeah, good luck. Usually I just try to play to the very, very front and then trickle up, perhaps with topspin depending on the club. Hole 12, extremely long par 4. I think you absolutely need to straighten Koopa Troopa's shot with just the tiniest pinch of fade in order to add an extra yard or two to his shots. I get +1 on the second shot percent distance RNG on this second shot, but I think this is slightly offset by having a one-frame hook, so I don't know how much that mattered. So I'm going to say that it is possible to do that without getting lucky RNG. But I guess you could argue that having no wind is lucky enough and no rain is lucky enough RNG in and of itself. Hole 14, longest par 4 in the game. You would think that all hope is lost because Koopa Troopa's 2 shots cannot possibly make it. However, there is this stone bridge at the end, so you just have to, you know, hope that the weather gods are with you. Play your extremely strongest drive. Hope that your lie is good, and then don't play too high of a second shot. Otherwise, you'll hit that ceiling and you'll just bounce the bridge, and hopefully you'll be on the green. So it is possible. Hole 15, long par 4. The most difficult obstacle that you have to contend with is this brick wall that guards the green, so it is in your best interest to play around this with a high shot or perhaps a fade, depending on how your character's trajectory plays out. The opening of that green is very small, so it is quite easy to miss the green outright. Hole 17, very weird and complicated hole. This is the only path I've figured out that gets Koopa Troopa a way forward here. Is you want to somehow trickle down past this womp here in order to bounce that bomb to get him out of the way, but you need to bounce him ever so gently because otherwise that explosion will send you into rough or perhaps even worse, out of bounds. And then, you know, fingers crossed you have a good lie, and thereafter play your strongest and highest shot to the green in regulation. Hole 18 is a par 3, so I skip it, and yeah, as it turns out, all 108 greens in regulation are possible. So, I hope that was entertaining and enlightening, and thanks for watching.